17 fast Fords that defined an era. XR Rebellion. Sporting Ford RS models have made car enthusiasts swoon for decades. But what about the models that sit below them? For years, Ford had given them a multitude of names, without settling on just one. In 1980, though, unity was achieved. This is the story of the Ford XR.
What went before? There were sporting Fords before the XR brand. As with the vividly colored MK2 Escort pictured above, some were simply called Sport. There were also Escort Mexicos and the Fiesta Supersport, but no single name that defined everyday fast Fords as RS did for the Exotica. That was, until someone within Ford had an idea.
1980 Ford Escort XR3. In 1980, a brand new MK3 front-wheel drive Escort arrived, as did an all-new sporting version, the famous Escort XR3. It only boasted 96 horsepower, but with its cloverleaf alloy wheels, sunburst red paint, front fog lights and large rear spoiler, it looked the part from the outset. An icon was born.
1981 Ford Fiesta XR2. Boo! Ford quickly followed it up. The unassuming Fiesta Supersport became the far more assertive Fiesta XR2, masterminded by the same crack Special Vehicle Engineering, SVE, team at Ford's British Engineering HQ. The 84 horsepower 1.6-liter Fiesta was good for 0 to 62 miles per hour in 9.3 seconds. Tasty stuff for 1981.
1982 Ford Escort X-Ray. Just 2 years after launch, Ford honed the XR3, enter the X-Ray. As its name suggests, the 1.6-liter CVH engine was now fuel-injected, meaning 104 horsepower and 0 to 62 miles per hour in 9.6 seconds. By now, the Hot Escort had a 5-speed gearbox, while Ford also tweaked the suspension to improve handling and lowered the ride height for a sportier stance.
1983 Ford Sierra XR4i. The 1983 Sierra XR4i took the car's controversial looks to the extreme. The glassy 3-door body style was given a sporting makeover that included a head-turning biplane rear spoiler. The suspension was tuned up, and the famous pepperpot alloy wheels first seen on the Fiesta XR2 made a fresh appearance. Powering the Sierra XR4i was the same 2.8-liter V6 engine fitted to the Ford Capri 2.8i, for 0 to 62 miles per hour in around 8.5 seconds.
1984 Ford Fiesta XR2. The second-generation Fiesta XR2 was a more sophisticated development of the original. It now used the same engine as the Escort XR3, producing 94 horsepower in non-injected guise. With black wheel arch extensions and a wraparound rear window spoiler, it looked fantastic. This was backed up by lowered, stiffened suspension, along with front and rear anti-roll bars, wider tires and bigger brakes. It would go on to sell tremendously well throughout the 1980s.
1985 Ford Sierra XR 4x4. By 1985, Ford had abandoned the 3-door Sierra bodyshell. The XR4i was thus replaced by a sophisticated new 5-door range topper, the XR 4x4. This Executive Express used a rally-developed 4-wheel drive system, in combination with a 150 horsepower 2.8-liter V6 engine. This running gear would later evolve further, into the Sierra RS Cosworth, but that's another story entirely.
1986 Ford Escort X-Ray. The Ford Escort was facelifted in 1986. It was comprehensive enough for the range to be termed MK4, although things were largely the same beneath the surface. The X-Ray gained a swoopy, sophisticated new look and an upmarket all-new interior, albeit no more power. A basic form of anti-lock braking was available as an option.
1989 Ford Fiesta XR2i. The 1989 Fiesta XR2i marked a step up in sophistication for Ford's sporty little hot hatchback. As the I indicated, it used a fuel-injected 1.6-liter CVH engine, which produced nearly 110 horsepower. It could sprint to 60 miles per hour in less than 10 seconds, although adding a catalytic converter did slow it down slightly. The only thing it lacked was power steering, so it gave drivers a workout behind the wheel.
1992 Ford Escort X-Ray. The MK5 Escort was a real flop when it was launched in 1990. Ford had to scurry back to the drawing board and rush out a series of improvements, from which the 1992 Escort X-Ray benefited enormously. The centerpiece was a new 1.8-liter engine, called Zeta, which produced up to 130 horsepower. Handling was crisp and enjoyable, too, although Ford had to tone down the styling to help combat rocketing car thefts and subsequently spiraling car insurance bills. As we'll see, this would ultimately prove costly to the Ford XR brand itself.
1992 Ford Fiesta XR2i. Ford also fitted the smooth new Zeta engine to the Fiesta, further improving the car's appeal. Suspension remained stiff and sporty, but a glowing 130 horsepower made it more relevant than ever. What a pity that, just as the Fiesta XR was reaching new levels of performance, the insurance question became insurmountable.
The decline of XR. It was car thieves that ruined the XR party. The models were becoming almost uninsurable, and Ford had no choice but to phase out the XR brand entirely. Its sporting models would now wear nondescript badges such as C. Just like perms, leather ties and shoulder pads, the XR's 1980s exuberance had no place in the 1990s. XR was no more.
ST, the new XR. By the early 2000s, things had changed. Car thieves no longer ruled the roost, thanks to modern levels of car security. Buyers were also demanding sportier and more charismatic versions of everyday models. Ford needed a new sporty sub-brand and decided on Street, which stands for Sports Technology. After a hesitant start with the Focus ST170 pictured here, the firm hasn't looked back. Luckily, neither car thieves nor insurance companies show any signs of spoiling this party yet. Let's hope it remains that way.
1996 Ford Falcon XR6. Although the XR brand faded from the UK in the 1990s, it remains surprisingly alive and well down under. Well, maybe not so surprisingly, the first XR branded car was actually Australian, not British, and the 1996 Falcon XR6 was simply the latest in a long line. An all-new Falcon XR6 arrived in 1998. Compared to the British XR's 1.6-litre engines, this was on another level entirely, with a 4.0-litre six-cylinder engine and rear-wheel drive platform. You could even get a Falcon XR6 Turbo. Ford went a step further in 2001 with the Falcon XR8. This used a whopping 5.4-litre V8, producing almost 400 horsepower.
2005 Ford Falcon XR5. Even the second-generation Ford Focus Street, the one with the 2.5-litre 5-cylinder turbo engine, gained XR badges for its entry into the Australian market. Fittingly, it was called XR5.
2011 Ford Falcon XR6. Revisions in 2011 brought a new level of sophistication, despite the garrulous performance of the six-cylinder turbo engine. Sadly, the XR no longer exists in Australia either, with the end of the muscle car era bringing a belated close to Ford's famous sporty brand. Finally, it's a case of XR gone. Will Ford ever bring it back? Well, stranger things have happened. Here's holding out hope for just one more 1980s revival.
Well, that's all, folks.
That's my line.
Step aside, babe. Let a star do this. That's all!
That's all, folks!